All right, welcome everybody to another Insights Now webinar. Today I'm joined with Kenny, and we're going to be talking about retail concept testing, specifically looking at trying to understand concept testing with some measures that you might not have ever used for concept testing before. We're specifically going to dig into two new measures: implicit, explicit, and a measure we call lift. Both are being used in a lot of other areas, but you may never have used them in concept testing, so we'll address those today. All right, way of better introductions. I'm Greg Stuckey. I'm Chief Research Officer at Insights Now. And here at Insights Now, we're focused on behavior-based research, helping companies innovate so that their innovations actually improve people's lives, change people's behaviors for the better at the end of the day. So our goal is to ensure that we do innovation research that helps you get to market quickly with products that are successful. And joining me today is Kenny McMahon.
Yeah, so hi everyone, Kenny McMahon. Good day. Spring is budding out here in Seattle, so hope all are well, and thanks for joining me and Greg. Super excited to share the case study with you, so Greg, take it away.
All right, excellent. Well, anytime during today's webinar, if you have any questions whatsoever, please go ahead and just type them into that question section. If we can address them while we're going through the webinar, I'll call them out, or Kenny will call them out, and we'll try and address them. If not, we'll grab them at the end. Now, that being said, I wanted to kick off everything with a poll. I wanted to ask everybody to fill out this poll, identify which concept or which type of metrics are you currently using for your concept testing. So you should be able to see that and go ahead and click yourself whatever answers. This is a check all that apply. So which measures are you personally using, or which ones do you rely on most is maybe a better question for your concept testing. So we'll wait for just a second while everybody types in all of their answers here. Moving all over the place. All right, I'm gonna close it out and just share out the information then. All right, so it looks like we've got overall liking, purchase intent, 60%, uniqueness, price value, and other key metrics are down at 20%. Really curious about what other key metrics you're using. So those of you that said that you used another key metric, could you type that into the question chat space there? Let us know what those other metrics you're using are. That'll be really helpful as we go through it. All right, we'll hide that off. All right, so what we want to be able to do with, so let's talk a little bit about traditional concept testing. Our experience with it, my personal experience after doing concept testing for goodness way too long, it's changed over time a little bit, but in general, it's actually pretty easy to write a concept that people like. It's pretty rare for us to test concepts that score poorly. Most all score really well. And what we see is those traditional scaled metrics like liking, like purchase intent, they're good sometimes, but they definitely don't tell us the whole story. They don't tell us how the concept may change a person's perception of that particular brand, because the most concepts that we work with are extensions of brands, not absolutely brand new to the market brands. And if they're brand new to the market, traditional metrics don't really tell us how people are going to be able to interact with that brand or self-social ID that particular brand. So it doesn't give us all of the story. And those traditional metrics, they tend not to help us differentiate between products very much. Everything kind of groups up into that liking scale. If you think about purchase intent's 5 points, if you're going to purchase everything, you're trying to differentiate products or ideas with 2 points on your scale. So it doesn't, it's pretty hard to do. So we're going to talk about two new behavioral metrics. The first is implicit and explicit. And implicit and explicit associations allow you to break apart a person's reaction when they see a particular concept, what type of associations immediately come to mind and are hardwired into that person's brain based on their memories, versus what are the things that are positive connections, but they have to think about them a little bit and they go, oh, I guess it does do that. Oh, that is kind of interesting. So it provides a clearer picture of our ability to understand whether a new concept or a new tweak to a product is going to nudge existing behavior forward, or whether it's going to cause a little bit of disruption and maybe potentially change people's either considerations or future behaviors. Now, the second measure is category lift, and this is a choice-based measure. So moving from a scale measure to implicit explicit, which is a reaction measure, to now a choice-based measure, which is category lift, which shows us really the opportunity for a new concept to change the choices people are making. So it provides a clearer picture of the trade-offs people may make between different types of products, different types of options that they may have that deliver on those same benefits. All right, so today we're going to be taking a lot of time to go through a Tofurky case study, as you saw in our title. The case study that we're going to be talking through comes from a piece of research that was run through our Innovation Center. So it's specifically this concept scoring app that's in our Innovation Center. So if you're interested in following up with that, shameless plug right up front, this is where it came from. So this is the basis of the concept case study that was happening here. Tofurky had an objective to figure out which of 3 new packaging concept ideas would improve sales for the meat deli slice area. So we grabbed 18 plus, balance of genders, primary grocery shoppers. These were buyers of deli meats and or plant-based meat alternatives in the past 6 months. And we had a decent balance of people who bought more meat-based and or plant-based alternatives. And specifically looking at the group that we focused on in the plant-based part of this, there was 200 people in this study. So pretty good sample size.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll take it from here. Thanks, Greg. So in addition to the current, our control box that was in market serving as our benchmark, we had 3 other new packaging concepts, including the vertical bag, a soft tray, and a plastic tub that had an inner plastic bag to contain the plant-based meat alternative in there. So as you can infer, each concept brings various pack architectures and implications around the sustainability and environmental play that Tofurky's bringing. So as Greg alluded to, this is our concept scoring application on our Innovation Center. It has a multifaceted approach, including 4 key steps. So step 1 is a category max diff to provide us with a baseline of the category, kind of benchmarking ourselves within that space. And then step 2, we are collecting traditional metrics, including liking, other KPIs, and also a ranking exercise here. And the ranking is important for the implicit explicit test module that we are doing in step 3. And that's where we're collecting that additional behavior layer to the consumer insights. And Greg mentioned that as far as that implicit, explicit, nudge, disrupt behavior. And we'll talk more about that later on. And then we're closing out this to do another concept max diff using that ranking position from step 2 and piping in the first rank concept here. And so by comparing the step 1 category max diff and step 4's concept max diff utility scores, we can calculate that lift.
Yeah.
So, as highlighted in that previous slide, sorry, Greg, the standard measurements show us how the concepts are comparing to one another. And that implicit, explicit tests enable us to uncover the consumer behavior and unlock the subconscious responses to the anticipated emotions and benefits to help us understand and help our client, Tofurky, understand how each each either nudge or disrupt as defined by the time it takes for them to think about that stimulus. And then with the category lift, we're informing tofurkey by way of which concepts have opportunity for the retail success.
All right. All right. So let's take a look at the standard metrics section, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so classic metrics here, right, Kenny?
Yeah. So as part of this standard metrics, we included the following KPIs, and these can be swapped in and out. This is the innovation center is a little bit customizable, and it depends on the company's needs. So, but for tofurkey, they chose from a set bank, and from an overall liking, purchase intent, frequency of use, all the way to this ranking. And so we want to show you what we found in the tofurkey case study, and what this standard metric output would look like. And so as you can see here, there's no statistical differences at the 95% confidence limit, and the data is relatively flat across these standard metrics among the concepts. So it's, by looking at this, you're like, okay, how do I make a decision about what concept do I choose moving forward? So in addition to these, we did that ranking aspect. And upon first glance, you can see that helps provide the differentiation of the concepts and enables us to focus the assessment for that step 3 of our implicit explicit test module. So what you can infer and see here is that overall, the plastic tub is ranked first and followed closely by the soft tray. And with the control box and the vertical bag, those were ranked lowest among the concepts. So when we shared this traditional data with tofurkey, they were really concerned because their hypotheses were focused on the vertical bag and soft tray. So seeing that the plastic tub ranked first in these traditional metrics, it kind of concerned them a little bit. And you can imagine going up to management having to convince them, and let alone the environmental and sustainable play that comes with the type of packaging. So what we found from this metrics is that there's a slight edge to the plastic tub and soft tray in the ranking. So if tofurkey would have done this traditional concepts test, they would have stopped right there, and not moved forward with any of these concepts. So that leads us into the implicit explicit test on the anticipated emotions and benefits. So I'll hand it back to Greg to take us through that piece.
Thanks, Kenny. So the implicit explicit test. Implicit explicit test is helping us gather better understanding of the type of associations that are happening when a person sees a concept. So in this study, you're shown, for instance, the soft tray, and then you're being asked when you think of yourself in the moment where you've got that soft tray, how does it make you feel, as well as which benefits are connected in with that. And I'll show you how that works. So implicit explicit testing has 4 core steps to it. And the first step is always calibration. One of the things that we found in implicit explicit work is that if you try to generalize across a group of people, you will get very poor results, hard to interpret results. But if you can take and calibrate each and every single person and identify for them in that very moment they're taking the questionnaire, what it denotes a fast response for them versus what denotes a slow response. So what speed of response is indicative of something that's intuitive and implicit, and which the rest of the responses then would be things that are slower and aren't fast enough to be considered implicit. So we first do that calibration. That way we can identify for every single person, if it's before they had their coffee or after they had their coffee, they may change. When they think about that category, it may change. If they're on their phone, on their computer, maybe it changes. Uses that information then to make sure that when we do the actual assessment, we're comparing and contrasting to their specific calibration. The next step is priming. One of the things that happens is dramatically important and creates a massive effect on the quality of your information and results is how well you set the prime for people, what context you give people to evaluate changes dramatically how they respond. Now, with explicit scales, you can see a little bit of difference here and there, but with implicit testing and choice-based testing, you see pretty dramatic differences when you change a person's prime, because to get that super fast response, it's got to be top of mind. It's got to be seated in that memory that's easy and quick to access. Now, in some pieces of research, we do projective exercises as well. So depending on the style of research, you may need a projective exercise. Often that is when you're using emotions that you experienced in the past, not emotions that you hope to feel in the future. So when you're doing past experience work, trying to do recall around stories and things like that, that's not happening in a concept test, so we're not using step 3 here, but we are then moving into step 4, which is the clear series of assessment tasks. And the way the assessment tasks work is you simply have a question like, does the following describe this product? And it says healthy, is it flavorful? And I can just say yes, no, is it organic? Yes, no. As I go through those, it changes and gives me my ability to test if was it a fast response or a slow response, and did they say yes or no. Okay. Now, out of that, we get what is called an implicit explicit score, and we get, of course, the 4 data points, but we can collapse those 4 data points into a overall score that then can be balanced across studies, databased across studies, to have then hurdle rates that you can set for yourselves in terms of how high of a score should I have in order to feel like I'm accomplishing a goal. So just like you do purchase intent, top 2 box hurdle rates, you want hurdle rates set for your implicit scores. So what we have is 75 and above is that really strong positive connection. The vast majority of the people have a strong implicit reaction or association. 50 to 75 range are more positive than negative answers. 50 to 25 down below are more negative than positive answers. And then anytime you're 25 and below, you're getting reactions that are implicitly negative. So fast no scores. So what we saw in this particular research on that 100-point scale, we can see that we did find significant differences in a person's degree of hope and a person's degree of intrigue with the 3 new packaging styles. So the control package you can see for hope is only a 45. That's lower than all 3 of the new packaging. And that's reasonably to be expected, especially the intrigue one. Anytime you put something brand new in front of a person or a combination that they hadn't seen before, it intrigues them. It catches their attention. So this is validation in this particular study to say, yes, the new packaging is creating an emotional lift for you. And there's nothing to be concerned about in terms of hesitancy, right? You can see a little bit of a trend, and this is what Kenny was talking about a little bit before, where you have only a 46 here for the plastic tub, 62 is for the current, but it's not statistically different. So while it's a trend, there's nothing that you could confidently say is statistically unique there, but certainly gives you good information to look at and watch for. Now, if we jump into the benefits that we studied here are all benefits that Tofurky has to perform on. So all of the new packaging would have to deliver on just as well as the current packaging in order for it to be a packaging option that you would consider. And the only place that we saw that there was a difference from the control is in the looks like meat section. So this could be both a positive and a negative, right? If you're from a design standpoint. So the great news is all 3 of the new packages are delivering better on looks like meat, and especially the soft tray is delivering quite a bit higher than the plastic tub in terms of looks like meat, a lot due to the visibility there, right? And potentially because of the angle of the photos and stuff that you've got available to people. But for the most part, we can see that can impact people's perceptions. So the real question moving forward would be, if I want to understand what looks like meat really means to people, is that something that is going to be beneficial for tofurkey because it's not meat, right? So is it going to be beneficial for them, or is it going to be something that is problematic for them? So this is where we get to dig a little deeper into implicit and explicit test scores and actually move into understanding the fast reactions versus the slow reactions. So the implicit reactions, which are really fast, those are the ones that nudge people's current behaviors along because they align perfectly well with their current beliefs. And the explicit reactions are the ones that disrupt people a little bit, and they will make people pause at the store shelf and potentially reevaluate their choices. So if you are an incumbent big brand, or you're making a concept change and you don't really want to disrupt anybody's habits, you want as many nudge reactions as possible. If, however, you're wanting to make a change and you're wanting to make it stand out, you do want to disrupt some people. So you want to pick things that are have a little bit more disruption to them. So if we break down the fast no, which is the orange here, the slow no, light orange, slow yes, light green, and fast yes, which is a dark green. If we look at the distribution, the percentage of people that had each of those scores for each of the products, you can see that the vertical bag had by far the most people who said fast yes, and the soft tray had a much higher group of people who were slow yes. So that's the piece that's really intriguing, because that means that the soft tray is going to cause a little bit more disruption than the vertical bag. So if you were considering between these two options, if you're saying which of these two should I pick, understanding the implicit explicit breakdown helps you understand that the vertical bag is something that would be nudge existing behavior along a little bit better than the soft tray, and the soft tray is going to be slightly more disruptive than the vertical bag. So depending on your go-to-market strategy and what you're trying to do with that product, you may pick one or the other because you know it delivers better behaviorally. All right, so in this case, looking at the emotions, looking at the benefits, there's clearly increased emotional desire for all three of the new packages. So there is some evidence that we didn't see in the standard metrics that we would say, yeah, going to one of the new packaging actually has some potential value because the soft tray and the vertical bag are better at triggering that real meat than the plastic tub.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. We've been sort of peppering you here and there with this idea on the metric of category lift. So now I want to explain in a bit more detail what this is, how we calculate it, and then go into some of the results that we found in the plant-based alternative retail space. So first, category lift is a metric to help quantify which product concepts have the greatest opportunity in the retail environment. So for Tofurkey's case study, we conducted an initial category max diff to provide a benchmark to the plant-based meat alternative category, and then did a concept max diff using consumers' first ranked concept. So the plant-based meat alternative has a lot of players, and the ones that we included in our tests included Tofurkey, the control box, and 6 other brands. And so within these brands, we also provided other details beyond the name, including the price and other flavor options in the SKU lineup that are available within each brand. So in the second max diff, the Tofurkey concept image changed depending on that consumer's first ranked concept. You know, was it the vertical bag, was it the soft tray, or was it the plastic tub, and how it was positioned against these other brands. So let's dig into this a little bit more, and how this exercise flowed. So we know category lift adds a broader picture to the market and retail shelf placement. And what we are comparing is the pre-category max diff from step 1 to the post-category max diff in step 4. Say that 3 times fast. But important to note is in the post-category max diff, we are piping in each consumer's first ranked concept. And so this category lift helps us understand the opportunity size each concept could create in the plant-based retail space. So an example of how a max diff is portrayed to the consumer is shown on the right-hand side of the screen. And one combination example here is, showing the plastic tub with light life and simple truth. And so consumers are going through a series of these combinations and selecting which one is their most appealing and which one is their least appealing concept. So one way we are able to present these max diff utility scores and how we calculated them, we went through a series of calculations here. So we first calculated a raw lift percentage by subtracting the category max diff score, the pre-max diff score, from the concept max diff score, that post max diff exercise, and then divided that by the pre-max diff score to give us that raw lift percentage. And then we went one step further to normalize that raw lift percentage by subtracting out the control raw concept lift percentage. And so one way we can compare these side by side is on the right-hand side, and it's easy to show the pre and the post. And so this is showing the plastic tub concept lift in relation to all the other plant-based meat alternative brands. And it's just, one easy way to be a little bit more business savvy to present these. And you can see that Tofurky has a really big difference here in how it compares to the concept deli slices in this space, being a 9.6 in the pre and then jumping into a 14.1. As we calculate the percentages, we wanted to show this in a little bit more detail. So what we can see is that even the control provides some lift, and that's why we wanted to normalize that across the concepts to provide a realistic opportunity score as compared to the current offering. And so as you can see, the vertical bag and the soft tray provide the highest retail lift as compared to the plastic tub, offering a mere 7% in the plant-based space. So in soft trays providing 77% raw, but then subtracting that out from the control, you get 36, and then the vertical bags at 26%.
Right.
So that there is a clear retail opportunity to increase sales, commercializing the vertical bag and the soft tray, looking at the max diff, category lift scores here. So Greg, any more you want to add here? Yep.
Well, I think this is it shows really well how information layers upon itself, right? So if you just are using your traditional metrics, you get a really short view, if you will, and you say, well, all of these are good options, and then it blends into, well, we can kind of pick whatever we want and move forward. And that might not be a bad scenario in some cases. Yet adding on the implicit gives you the ability to find out, well, are we going to tweak anything? Are we going to change people's perceptions? And here we learned, while there's good evidence that all of them are going to deliver emotionally, there's also a change in perception of real meat that's going to happen if you would move into that space. Now, is that a good thing for the way you want your brand to be portrayed, or is that a poor thing for your brand, right? And that's the thing that is great about the benefits, is you can put pieces and parts in there, the things that you want to avoid, things you want to adhere to, and you can identify opportunities. And finally, then getting the actual choices, right? Understanding how people really make choices and which ones they're willing to trade off does give you a little bit better understanding that while maybe on a scale there's not a whole lot of difference, it may actually impact their choices as well. So having all three of those layering on top of each other provide really good evidence for making better and more well-informed decisions around your concepts. All right, so in conclusion, right, if you're just focusing on this, saying, okay, within this plant-based deli meat section, if I'm going to the store here, do I have enough information to make a change? And so since the standard metrics didn't show much there, you would say no. But once you dig into the lift measures and the emotions measures and the benefits around being portrayed more like real meat, then you would argue, yeah, actually, there is good information here that says I should invest some money in commercializing a soft tray as an example in this particular case. Okay. So to bring this all home, standard metrics really great at setting hurdles and benchmarks and seeing if your products are hitting those hurdles and benchmarks. So don't throw those out. They have some great value because they do help you understand historical benchmarks, and they get a good assessment of that rationalized overall review that a person has. Adding implicit and explicit helps you break apart the associations that people have that are more more likely to disrupt people versus more likely to nudge people. So it gives you a clearer understanding of whether you are hitting all of those brand benefits, brand perceptions that you're really hoping that the product would communicate. And then finally, the category lift is really changing that understanding of choice share. And if you can put a control product in, like you saw we had here, including a control, you can then subtract that out and get that more realistic measure of what kind of shift or change is going to happen. And then a further piece that we didn't really touch on today is you can drill down into that to find out who you're going to steal share from as well. So it does help you understand where that could, where your share is going to come from should you get a lift. All right, well, we love to thank Tofurky. They were very generous in letting us share this case study. As you may well know, not a lot of brands are willing to put their research out there for public consumption, but Tofurky really loved this particular piece. And of course, they have a vested interest in getting those plant-based deli meats to come off the shelf, and thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. Their comment, Aaron from Tofurky, said that this was a piece of research that gave them confidence to help them justify a new investment. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what your research needs to do, is provide that good information that provides you good business value. So certainly thank you, Aaron, and the rest of the Tofurky team for letting us share this information.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so question time. If you have any questions, go ahead and take the time to pop those into the question section. Would love to answer any questions that you have. All right, see people typing in here. All right, well, while we're waiting for questions to come in, Kenny, one of the things that we get asked a lot is about context effect. And in the implicit work, we talked about how important priming was. And so for a piece of research like this, you're doing the category lift. How important is the context of that category lift?
I mean, very, very important. Like, I mean, you alluded to it as you were showing the implicit, explicit test module. Just the priming prefix in a question to help set the stage for that question or objective you're trying to answer is super important. So, putting the consumer in that right mindset will get you that high quality data. So, and we did see that with this piece, and we're sharing it. We shared it at Works. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had prepared a couple of slides to help Kenny answer too. So there you go. So you've got the rest of the story, right? You just presented this at Quirks, and in this case, right, we had a plant-based cell. So we had one group, which is exactly what we showed here today, which was the group of people who went through and evaluated based on only thinking about other meat alternative products. And then we had a whole nother group of people, completely independent group of people, who just focused on the meat and the plant combined, right? So because really the question is, well, what would happen if the retailer shelved this in a different context? If it was shelved with plant-based only products versus if it was served or shelved right next to all the other animal-based, meat-based products.
Yeah, looks like oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so in this study, right, you go ahead and take us through it.
Yeah, it looks like we got some questions coming in right now. Yeah, so with the two different cells, I mean, we had the plant-based and then the combination with the meat-based deli slices, and you can see here that the additional 5 brands that were included in that meat-based cell, including a plastic tub from Hillshire Farm. So I mean, to help set that context, you'd think that, with all the concepts that Tofurky's presenting and how it's rotating in that max diff exercise, we wanted to see how context of setting in the plant-based framework or the meat-based framework was really impacting the opportunity for Tofurky at the retail space. So yeah, the next slide I think is really showing how important priming is to make that difference for the consumer, and changing that context to be the meat-based or the plant-based was super important. So you can see the data that we showed earlier today from a plant-based lift, the vertical bag being 26%, soft tray providing even a little bit more lift, and then the plastic tub under delivering there. But look at it in the meat-based and the plant-based context. The plastic tub shows the largest lift opportunity for the deli sandwich category in totality. But one of the risks here is that you could potentially alienate your consumer base looking for the plant-based positioning. So, seeing that the soft tray has a balance here across, the plant-based context and a combination of contexts here, I think is super important how, Tofurky was digesting this material
Right.
for the
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah, I love this. This one was, I think, more dramatic than I expected, quite honestly. You know, I I didn't really on that personal level of buying all types of products in this space, didn't realize how big of an effect context was really having, and I'm sure it's having on me as a buyer in that particular space as well. But I think this is a great example of how, when you do the research, you do have to take into account. You got to take into account what that context is, because putting people in different contexts, bringing different pieces to top of mind is going to change the way they answer. It's going to change their choices in this particular case, and it changes their implicit scores as well.
Yeah.
All
I think
right.
that leads into our question from the audience. Watson had mentioned,
Yeah.
how did you determine the emotions provided to
Mm.
the consumer set?
Yeah, that's a great question. So emotions are, think of emotions in a couple different veins. There are emotions that you experience when you see and touch and feel a product, so that's directed directly at the product. But there's also emotions that are what we call anticipation emotions, and that's how you believe you're going to feel in the future, right? And so anticipation emotions are essentially, hope, fear, and intrigue. Those are your core pieces. Now, those words don't always match up with exactly how consumers talk. So what we do to set that set of emotions is we identify, well, what are the core emotions that people will talk about as they think about something in the future? So I feel hopeful about this product, that it would deliver. I'm a little hesitant, not really sure about this product. That's another way of talking about fear. So we come up with our anticipation word set or emotion set that are emotional words that fit a person's future state, rather than looking at their past state. So had this been, say, a product test where they got to touch and feel and experience the product and try and open it, and it was an actual packaging test where you're actually using the packaging, then you're going to want to actually do a projective exercise, pull out all of your core discrete emotions and put those in there, because then you can understand satisfaction, dissatisfaction, and the rest of the pieces that only happen when you have a real experience with the product. So that's how we picked our emotion set, is by focusing on people on the future, and then asking them to think about how they would feel with the product in an anticipatory standpoint.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions that we have? I don't see any other questions that we haven't already addressed with the concept lead on. So that looks fantastic. Well, thank you all for coming today. Our next webinar is next week. So a week from today, it is March 18th. It is going to be on concept creation, and our CEO, Dave Lundahl, will be giving that with Kate Hamilton, who is director of our Innovation Center, and they're going to be talking about the first step in successful innovation. And they're teasing you by saying, come and learn the 4 C's. And we're not even going to tell you what the 4 C's are right now, but you can go to the website, read about them, because they are there. So come learn the 4 C's of concepting on March 18th, next Thursday. All right. Anything else, Kenny?
No, I mean, thank you guys for your time, and pleasure sharing the case study with you. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, everybody. You have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
yeah, you too.